Looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Bounce it!
Is this the dagger?
Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection.
What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to a jam-packed episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. I have a ton of topics that I want to talk about with you guys today. I want to recap last night's games between the Pacers and the Knicks, game one of that series, Timberwolves and the Nuggets, and the two games we have seen from that series and how crazy that's been so far, kind of the reverse of what everybody thought maybe would have happened throughout those first two games. I want to preview the Cavs and Celtics series. Those round two games start tonight along with the Dallas Mavericks and OKC Thunder series. And then I also want to talk about what the Magic can do this offseason, as they did lose in 7 games to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday. So yeah, a bunch of different topics that I want to talk about with you guys today, so we might as well just get right into it. So I want to start off by talking about the New York Knicks and Indiana Pacers game one from last night. Obviously, you guys kind of know my thoughts and opinions on the Knicks from round one. I talked about what I thought about the Pacers too after their round one victory against the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm excited to kind of I'm like rooting for the Knicks. Obviously, I'm a Knicks fan. It's funny because like going back to like when I started this podcast originally, right before COVID, this was like 2019, fall of 2019, early 2020. I was trying to be as unbiased as a fan as I am, and I still am. Like I go fully unbiased, but I'm gonna show out and root for the Knicks. I think at that point when the Knicks were so bad in the 2020 season, where I just had to watch like Marcus Morris every night and Randall and Bobby Portis and RJ Barrett be a part of a dysfunctional organization and David Fizdale, I was like, you know what, Matt? Stop trying to publicly root for the Knicks. Like, be closeted Knicks fan. Just act like you're kind of unbiased for every team, and at times my bias will get in the way for the Knicks, but that's the fan in me. I'm from New York. I was a Knicks fan since I was 6 years old. I don't really want that part to leave of me, and I think we find this problem if you're on Twitter specifically, where I shouldn't have to feel bad for the Knicks losing this game. We can go into how bad the officiating was throughout this whole game. It was super inconsistent for both ways. It's not like every call went the Knicks' way. That's objectively true. There was some really bad calls that were in favor of the Pacers. I know people were also talking about some, calls that went the Knicks' way, but going back on it and watching it, those calls should have been made. Like Halliburton was able to get a catch an air ball as the shot clock was expiring, got it up with still 0.1 seconds to go. It left his hand, and everybody's like, they made the wrong call there. They called the shot clock violation. You watch the game back, Halliburton caught that ball when he was stepping out of bounds. It's those things that go either way. But I will be able also to be a Knicks fan and realize that the Pacers got screwed on 2 calls down the stretch. There was the first foul on Halliburton on Brunson. I believe it was Halliburton on Brunson, where he didn't even touch him. Like, he maybe grazed his arm. That should never be called a foul. They called it a foul. Halliburton goes like running to the bench. Let's challenge it, and they're able to get that overturned. Now, there was also another call where Aaron Nesmith got quote unquote a kickball, and like, I don't know why I did quote unquote there. Like, they called it a kickball, but he hit it with his hand. Now, when you're watching it live, it could have looked like a kickball. Like, if you're watching it like on the broadcast, for sure, I thought it was a kickball. And then they show it back and you're like, oh my God, that was not a kickball. And for some reason, you could challenge so many different things. You can challenge if it's a charge. You could challenge like if a foul wasn't a foul or anything specifically, something like an out of bounds play, like who it out last on. Why can't you challenge a kickball? That should be one of the easiest things to review. Just look back and see if it hit the person's foot, the player's foot. For some reason, they can't challenge that. I would have been livid if I was a Pacers fan. And then towards the end of the game, I mean, there was Nembhard's pressing up on Brunson, like doing a great job defensively. I thought the Knicks handled that press and their late game doubles horribly. Like, the play I'm going to talk about is when Brunson gets stopped by Nembhard, where he's got to go the length of the floor, and the ball goes out of bounds, and they call it Pacers ball, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Jalen Brunson, you're playing at a historic rate right now. How are you turning the ball over like that? The Knicks were able to challenge. It hit off of Nembhard last. That was also tough to look at. And the ref that couldn't even see that play called it out on the Knicks, which was kind of weird. So that call goes over way. And like, we're just seeing bad officiating back and forth. And then there was the play where Brunson gets doubled. And he tries to, like, I don't know why they didn't call timeout. I don't know. I guess nobody was open. And obviously Brunson 6'1", he was guarded. I think it was either Nembhard and Halliburton or Nesmith and Halliburton. And Brunson throws it off of Halliburton. Like, you know, the thing where you're falling out of bounds. You try to gun it off the player so it goes out on them. He does that, hits Halliburton, but then bounces back on Brunson, and it's out on the Knicks. So now there's about like 15 seconds left or 20 seconds left. The Pacers are able to take the lead in this game, basically. It's the fourth, like, it's going to be the final play potentially. And obviously I was getting flashbacks to Halliburton's game winner against the Milwaukee Bucks. And it was kind of scary, man. Yeah, so it was what? It was 118-117, I believe. And Miles Turner gets called for an offensive foul for a moving screen. Now, what I've been reading online is technically it is a moving screen. Like, Turner did not give DiVincenzo a chance whatsoever. But two things here. I mean, we saw this in the UConn, was it the UConn-Iowa game, right? We saw it in that game. You don't want to see this game get end on a borderline moving screen. If that's a foul or not, yeah, it's not like Turner went out and punched or shoved or did anything like egregious on DiVincenzo. It shouldn't have been called a foul. DiVincenzo also flopped. I don't know why DiVincenzo did that, but Aaron Nesmith also flopped a couple plays earlier as well, and that play also went against the Knicks, where DiVincenzo like didn't even foul Nesmith. He flopped. But I mean, I wish we could take flopping out of the game altogether. Too many guys do it, but that should not have been called, and the Pacers got screwed out of a chance to hit a game-winning shot right there. The Knicks were able to hit their free throws. There was a challenge play towards the end of the game. But yeah, Brunson hit his free throws, made it a 4-point game. Nembhard, I think got called. I forgot why Brunson got to take the extra free throw. I think it was just like a play away from the, I don't know if it was like a clear path, technically, whatever they called it, or someone got teed up. But the Knicks were able to get a fourth free throw. And they actually challenged the Miles Turner screen, and they called it still. So they reviewed it and doubled down on the foul call on Miles Turner. So what was just such a good game back and forth. I think the largest lead was for the Pacers. It was for the Pacers at 9 points towards the end of the game. I don't know if the last 2-minute report is out yet. I don't think it is, but I'm sure some of these calls will go in favor, or that should have been like for the Pacers. I mean, that kick ball, that's going to come out, and they were wrong about that. And then the moving screen, I think they're still going to double down on. It's just shitty that they called it in that situation. But we just saw Brunson score his fourth straight 40-point game in the playoffs. Also setting records. Like, he's joining company with Oscar Robertson, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, only player to do that 4 straight times, but 30 points and 5 assists, and that's what he's been doing. And Jalen Brunson has been playing like a top 5 player in this league, which is just freaking wild. Freaking wild to say. Now, he was like okay against the Cavs in their first playoff series as a Knick, but over his last 3 playoff series, going back to the Heat series last year in round 2, Philadelphia this year, and the first game against the Pacers, he's averaging 34 points per game. 34 points per game, shooting 47% from the field, averaging 7.5 assists and 5 rebounds a night. And this was a fun game, man. This is going to be a great series for sure. Like, TJ McConnell, in my opinion, played better than Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton wasn't really scaring anybody, but I also feel like he's become so passive with his shot, and his 3-point shots, like, some of his misses weren't bad misses. There was a couple in and outs in there where I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that didn't fall down. But his defense hasn't been good. He's been too hesitant with the ball, and if Halliburton wants to be this guy that's making this rookie extension, that's playing for Team USA, well, he got his rookie extension, playing for Team USA, wants to be on an All-NBA team again, wants to be an All-Star starter again, make an All-NBA one day, be an All-Star starter again, which he was this year. He's got to be more aggressive, man. You cannot take 6 shots in this game and score, 0 points in the fourth quarter, 3 points in the fourth quarter, whatever it was. And TJ McConnell, your backup, outplayed you. McConnell is a pest out there. This dude, I know he's not the fastest player in the NBA. It's funny because I tweeted that out and I got like Kings fans saying, Matt, what are you talking about? It's obviously a Fox. I was exaggerating, right? But McConnell does not get tired. This dude has lungs of steel. He's running up and down the floor and was a nightmare for the Knicks. He only played 22 minutes. He needs to play more minutes. I think you diminish Halliburton's if Halliburton isn't going to be that aggressive offensively. Because Halliburton cannot be scoring 6 points. He cannot in game 1 on the road. A game you not desperately need to win, but you need to win one of the first 2. You do not want to be down 2-0 going back to Indiana. So, I don't know, man. Like, Obi Toppin had a sick fast break dunk through the legs. Did that at Dayton. I'm pretty sure he's done that with the Knicks. He had 12 points. I liked Obi, man. As a Knicks fan, I'm so upset it didn't work out for the Knicks. And Tibbs misused him. The organization misused him. We can agree on that. Obviously, like, Tibbs has done great job with some guys. He's done a poor job there. And then also want to give some love to Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo. Man, the Nova boys. I mean, you can give some love to Anunoby and Hartenstein and what they did defensively, but you got to give some love to the Nova boys, man. Josh Hart, like 4 crucial offensive rebounds in this game that led to Knicks points. They led to Anunoby threes. They led to and Anunoby dunks. They just kind of led to just second chance points, man. Steven Chenzo hit a 3 as well. Like, he had 25 points. Josh Hart finished with 24 points, 3 steals, 1 block, 8 assists, 13 rebounds. And played the whole game. Again, this dude plays every single minute. He does not get tired. He's got lungs of steel. DiVincenzo finished with 25 points, knocked down 5 threes, and hit the biggest shot of the game for the Knicks, which was a deep 3. And the Pacers played that game amazing job defensively. And man, I'm getting worked up just talking about this game, because I was just like, you know what? I got out of like the stress out of the Philly series. I thought that was going to be the most stressful one, because all my friends in Philly are Sixers fans, and I really just wanted to beat them. And I got so annoyed on the way like kind of Embiid was playing in that game at some points. And it's funny, Embiid tweeted out like LOL. He tweeted out like LOL during some of the Knicks calls towards the end of the stretch, which I'm going to say here and say the Knicks got calls. I don't think any Knicks fan that's objectively looking at this game would be like, yeah, the Knicks, you know what, those were good calls. Like, that was a kickball. No, it wasn't. But honestly, I think we've come to a point, like, as a society, do not feel bad. If the roles were reversed and the Pacers won this game, I would be pissed. Yes, like, Pacers fans are pissed. But if I was a Pacers fan and everything was reversed, do not feel bad about winning a playoff game. All right. Like, yes, some calls didn't go your way in your final 2 minutes. Well, play better in the previous 46, right? The Pacers had a 9-point lead. Don't blow that 9-point lead. You can look at it as. And yes, like, refs are going to mess up. It's the human element of the game, and it sucks. Like, I wish we could get perfect refs, but we would have gotten them by now if we were ever going to get them. So it is unfortunate that happened. And like, what was such a great, entertaining back and forth game had to be ruined by officiating towards the end. It kind of sucks. It really does. But this was such a fun game 1, and I'm so excited about this series going forward. All right, and then I want to talk about the Nuggets Timberwolves series so far. So we had an Ant masterclass on Saturday. They ended up winning 106-99, stole that game. I was watching it at a bar, and I'm like tweeting out like, the Anthony Edwards top 5 player in the league talks are going to go crazy if they upset the Denver Nuggets. And I'm saying upset because they were the 3 seed going up against a 2 seed. And I got like replies saying he already is top 5. And I'm like, there it is. We're just going to be prisoner of the moment, recency bias. Well, Ant has definitely been the most talked about player of these playoffs, 100%. I think like what Brunson has been doing is incredible, but he's not as young as Anthony Edwards. He doesn't have as high of a ceiling as Anthony Edwards. And Ant is not carrying this team, but leading this Minnesota team here in the playoffs so far. And obviously Cat played great in round 2, but Ant had 43 points in game 1 and just put the game to rest at the end of it. And Gobert was out last night. And the Timberwolves held the Nuggets to 80 points without the defensive player of the year, most likely winner in Gobert, which is crazy. Cat had 27, Ant had an efficient 27, and Cat was efficient as well. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's improved so much at Virginia Tech. Like, I remember like really getting into that 2019 draft. As like the first one. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make videos about this. I want to scout these guys and really be involved in the draft process. And I loved Alexander Walker's shot creation. I'm like, this guy could be a bucket getter, and you're going to get him like at 17th. I think he originally went to the Pelicans in that trade. They made a trade with the Hawks on draft night. And he's kind of like not become what I thought he was going to be at Virginia Tech. He is an elite perimeter defender, man. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a freaking stud in this league. And like him and Jaden McDaniels, incredible together. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is under contract next year. Okay, you are lucky. You are lucky, Minnesota, because I'm like, this guy is going to get a payday this offseason. He's on a 2-year, $9 million deal in the 23 offseason. Wow, Tim Connolly masterclass, man. He absolutely cooked with that contract. And you have Jaden McDaniels, elite defender. Obviously, you wish there was more on the offensive end, but elite defender. I loved him in that 2020 class out of Washington. I was like, this is an absolute steal of a pick because of the versatility and upside he had with his length and his defensive potential. And I don't know, man, this was an ass kicking on the road. The fact that Minnesota won both games on the road to start off 2-0 in this series, and I know we've seen this happen before, like the Clippers, I think in the 21 playoffs, it was the bubble or the 21 playoffs, came back down 2-0 to Dallas after Dallas won both games in LA. So it's not impossible. I mean, like, Gobert's coming back. He had the birth of his child. Like, he's coming back, though. And Aaron Gordon was a minus 33 in this game. Michael Porter Jr. was not hitting a shot to save his life. Jamal Murray looked like a deer in headlights. This dude looked lost out there, and obviously he was so uncomfortable with the way that they were guarding him defensively and picking him up full court and making his life a living nightmare, man. It really was kind of wild. I mean, like, Justin Holiday stepped up for the Nuggets, or else this game would have been like even worse, but you don't really want to get to that. And if you're getting to like major Justin Holiday minutes, the game's probably not going well for you, or really well. And on that end, it wasn't great whatsoever. Mike Conley, perfect kind of leader point guard for this team right now. You still have Naz Reid and, like I said, Naw coming off the bench, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're running basically a 7-man rotation out there, Minnesota. Or I guess it's an 8-man when Gobert plays. But it's funny also, just kind of going back to the Knicks series, that the TNT graphic will always show Knicks bench points, and it's like 40-3. And I'm like, all right, the Knicks are literally putting 2 guys off the bench at times, and it's Miles McBride, and it's who's backing up Jalen Brunson, so he's not going to play a ton, and it's Mitchell Robinson, who's playing on one ankle basically, and is not a scorer whatsoever. So I'm like, come on, you know what you're doing with that narrative. But this is kind of crazy that Minnesota is up 2-0 on Denver. Jokic, if he wants to be the number 1 player in this league, and I know how hard it is to repeat. I know it's impossible. It's not impossible, but teams rarely do it. We saw it in 17 and 18 for the Warriors. We saw it in 12 and 13 for the Heat. It's been a minute, like 9 and 10 for the Lakers. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Denver to repeat. You're down 2-0 against like a team that's physical. And I think going back on it, I know this is so, like, it's hindsight, man. And I was debating, I remember doing a contenders and pretenders. I forget if I said Minnesota was a contender, but I remember, like, you know what, Matt, they're physical, they play defense, and they have decent enough offensive talent to go all the way. And I don't think I was as strong on them as I should have been, because teams that are this physical, this aggressive, and can take on physicality in the playoffs do well. That is huge. That is a vital for success. And that's what the Timberwolves identity basically is. And I wish I was on them a little bit more, but hey, that's hindsight, and now I'll know. And maybe I should have been higher on like OKC. Like my conference finals pre-playoffs was Denver-Dallas. And at this point, it could be OKC, Minnesota. I am recording this before game 1 of OKC in Dallas. So you never know. It's going to be a very interesting game 3, which I believe is going to be on Wednesday, man. Just the Knicks play on Wednesday. Wow, so they play on Friday? Oh my God, wait, they get 3 days off? Am I tripping right now? Tuesday, May 7th, they don't play tonight. Wednesday don't play. Wow, 3 days off? The Knicks and Pacers are every other day. That is kind of crazy that they get 3 days off. I did not realize that whatsoever. All right. Interesting scheduling. But I guess they started before everybody, so everybody will be caught up by then. All right. Then maybe it makes sense in that way. But it's going to be interesting because Minnesota wins at home in game 3. Everybody's going to be fully out there again. And they go up 3-0. I mean, it's probably it for Denver, which would be kind of crazy. Like Minnesota also has yet to lose a playoff game, sweeping Phoenix, winning the first 2 in Denver. How about that, man? Ant is going to be like, it's kind of crazy because if Denver loses this series, one of like Shea or Luka is going to their first career finals, which is pretty dope, and could get their first ring. And then in the East, like Brunson, I mean, I don't think, I'm sorry, Pacers fans. I think it's going to be the Celtics either way. Like Tatum could be in line to get his first ring. Maybe Donovan Mitchell gets a ring, maybe Halliburton or Brunson. But like at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Tatum and the Celtics or one of the Western Conference teams. And that could be Shea. Like the talks that we are going to have if Shea gets a ring, if Ant gets a ring, if Luka gets a ring this year. Oh boy. And that could happen guaranteed, or at least making it out of the Western Conference if Minnesota defeats Denver. And it's not looking too good for Denver going forward. They have to switch things up immensely. And it's must win game 3. All right. So let's talk about this Boston Cavs round 1 series. I mean, the Cavs, I think Jared Allen is still day to day, but Boston is 12.5-point favorites at home. Jared Allen is a game time decision. Kristaps is out. Dean Wade out. Craig Porter out. Ty Jerome out. Now, I predicted this series. I predicted Cleveland to beat Orlando, and I had Boston winning this series in 5. And that is thinking Boston was going to be fully healthy. The thing Cleveland has going for them, if they can get Jared Allen fully healthy and Kristaps is out, they can body them inside because they're going to have Luke Cornett out there, Al Horford, Xavier Tillman. And you're playing a lot of Tatum or Brown at the 4. And that could be how you beat Boston. You slow the game down, you get second chance points, and you try to win in the post. You try to do so, and you just outmatch them with your size and physicality inside because you're not beating them on the perimeter. Like the way Darius Garland has been underperforming in these playoffs, and I know how good Donovan Mitchell has been stepping up. Like Derek White and Drew Holiday are going to make their lives a living hell. Garland, I am scared of how bad he was against Jalen Suggs and at times Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony in round 1. Think about how it's going to be when you have Derek White and Drew Holiday switching back and forth on you. It's going to be a nightmare for Garland. And maybe he steps up, maybe completely turns his playoff reputation around here. But it's going to be tough for Mitchell to also step up and do what he did against Orlando in round 1. The way you're going to beat them is going inside with your physicality. These teams met back in the 2018 playoffs in the conference finals. That was when, I don't remember I think Boston was up like 3-2 or something in that 2018 playoff series. But yeah, that was when that was a rookie Jason Tatum. That was a very young Jaylen Brown. Kyrie Irving was hurt in those playoffs. That was the game 1 of that season when these two teams met, that Gordon Hayward ended up breaking his ankle against the Cavs to start off the year. And obviously the roles are reversed here. That was the LeBron team that obviously should have gone all the way. They did, or at least they went to the NBA Finals. They lost to the Warriors. So in this series, Boston won the first 2 games in Boston. And then Cleveland won 2. Boston was up 3-2, and then the Cavs won the last 2. Yeah, what a different time that was, man. That was Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, Marcus Smart, Aaron Baines. And then you go to that Cleveland roster, it's so bad. LeBron, Love, George Hill, Jeff Green, Kyle Korver, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, Rodney Hood, Jetty Osman, even Jose Calderon got minutes in that series. Kind of wild, right? Kind of wild. But it's going to be, I think, a good series here. I think it should be competitive. Obviously, Boston, it should be a little bit more competitive against Miami, given that Cleveland is better than Miami, with Miami without Jimmy Butler. And then Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out in this series as well. Allen should return at some point if he doesn't play game 1. Hopefully, he returns pretty quickly. But then Kristaps Porzingis most likely is out, I think, this whole round, unless it's like a game 7, maybe he comes back. But it's been an up and down season for Cleveland. I know their fans, and I'm sorry, are sick of hearing trade talks for this offseason when they're literally still alive. I think the only thing you're talking about, I think it's fair to bring up Donovan Mitchell could get traded this offseason for sure. Pending free agent, hasn't agreed to an extension. You don't want to work, you can't lose him for nothing, right? And then we've seen how underwhelming Mobley and Jared Allen have been in the playoffs playing together just sometimes as a front court duo. So it's not crazy to say that you can move Jared Allen this offseason, but let's see these guys step up. Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs beat Boston here to go to the conference finals. Yeah, we could talk about how they should now, Donovan Mitchell should stay in Cleveland. But if they get a round 2 exit here, and props to them for getting a round 1 exit, it's still a disappointment of a season, man. I know you ran into Boston. I know you ran into the best team in the league, but they're without Kristaps Porzingis. They're not impossible to beat. This isn't the death lineup Warriors from 2017, 2018. Let's see what you could do, Cleveland. Do you want to just roll down and be like, yeah, you know what? We pushed Boston to 5 or 6. It's okay. Let's win this series. Let's re-sign Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. Let's prove to everybody that Evan Mobley and Jared Allen can work together in their front court. Let's prove that JB Bickerstaff is a good coach, that Max Strus was worth the mid-level exception, that Darius Garland isn't a fraudulent playoff player so far in his career, right? Let's see that. I'm rooting for you, Cleveland. I want to see that, and I would love to see everybody switch up on you, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing the trades and guys leaving you in the offseason. Let's worry about beating Boston. Let's see it. As for Boston, you should make light work of this team. I'm not saying you're going to sweep them. Hey, you can win in 6, but it shouldn't be. It should be like you're up 3-1. Maybe they take game 5. Then you win in 6 back in Cleveland, right? If that's what it came to. But they should win this in 5, even without Kristaps Porzingis. They've had a lot of time to rest, and I'm interested to see how the front court matchup looks like. I think that's going to be the most interesting part about this series for sure. And then the other series that hasn't started yet, game 1 tonight, we have the Dallas Mavericks and the OKC Thunder. Shout out to Jason Kidd, I believe, just getting a new extension there, as the Thunder are about 3-point favorites to open up this game tonight. And this should be a fun series, man. I said it on Twitter, but we really got blessed with the most entertaining round 2 in the West possible. Getting Minnesota versus Denver, the team that is ready to dethrone the Denver Nuggets. They've been at the top of the West for the last year and a half. And then you have the OKC Thunder, one of the youngest teams in the league, and the 1 seed that just swept the Pelicans that I feel like aren't getting talked about enough. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, emerging himself into being a consensus top 5 guy in this league, going up against Luka, doing the same thing, and they're ready to make their first finals appearance under Luka Doncic. And Kyrie and Luka have been playing so well together. I know they lost Maxi Kleber in that series against the Clippers, but they beat the Clippers in 6, and they were able to get done with that series for sure. Lou Dort, who is going to get the Luka matchup. It's going to be a fun time. I know Luka says that Dort is a great defender and is one of the best in the league. I thought Dort's defense was a little down this year, but this OKC defense can be very good. You could switch Shai at times. You could switch J-Dub. They have length. They have versatility for sure. We're going to see how Chet Holmgren, 7'1", can go up against Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. That's going to be fun. Is Chet Holmgren going to be physical enough against those bigs inside? I think he can hold his own against Lively. Gafford, let's use that experience against Chet Holmgren for sure. Chet, I think made light work of Jonas Valanciunas, wasn't an issue for him in round number 1, and we can see how it's going to look in this series against against Dallas. Who's going to step up? I think, like, obviously we know what we're going to get out of Luka and Shea. I don't think either of them are going to shine away from the moment here, and they're going to both have great series. But who's going to be better number 2? Kyrie Irving is better than Jalen Williams right now. But Jalen Williams, this is where you could step up. This is where people could be talking about you as like, all right, Jalen Williams is one of the 30th best players in the league, and he should be the number 2 on this team, and not talk about like Chet Holmgren for at least scoring production specifically. This is going to be a fun series for sure. I think this could definitely go to 7, and I am so excited to watch this nonetheless. I would be very shocked if Dallas blew out OKC tonight. I don't think I would be too shocked if OKC beat Dallas by double digits. And then I expect this series to be very close, though, and won either way. I'm just going to be a fan of this series, man. I'm not rooting for any team. I'm not really rooting for any team in any of the series. I mean, I think it would be like cool if Cleveland pulled off the upset against Boston. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Knicks. I think it's cool what Anthony Edwards is breaking out into this season. But in this series, man, I'm just going to enjoy good hoops. I'm going to enjoy 2 high-powered offenses, 2 great young players going at each other, 2 solid head coaches, 2 really good young big men, and just enjoy this series as an NBA fan. Hoping every game is close. Gonna be staying up watching these games. Man, I've been going to bed way too early as late. Like, I fell asleep at halftime in the Nuggets Timberwolves game, and I gotta rewatch it when I wake up knowing the score, which kind of like takes the fun out of it, man. Like, you already know the outcome. I already know that the Nuggets scored 80 points, and I'm like watching this offense in disgust in round number 2, or excuse me, in half number 2. So this OKC Maverick series is gonna be a lot of fun. Let's get into these Orlando Magic offseason plans. All right, let's talk about what the Orlando Magic can do this offseason. This team played with house money this year. They were projected, I think it was 36.5 wins, and they ended up hitting 47 this year, or it was 47 or 37.5, and they ended up hitting 47. So this team exceeded expectations. I think I had them by 11th seed going into the year, or the 12th seed. So they exceeded my expectations for sure, and I was low on them 100%. They officially have their franchise player in Paolo Banchero, which is what you need as a team, and you have that building block. I think that's what teams like, I think Detroit are looking for. Will Cade be that guy? I think that's what teams Washington need to figure out. Teams like Utah need to figure out, like, who's going to be their guy going forward. Like, for Utah, I mean, like, is Lowry Markkanen the guy, right? Paolo is going to be that guy. He was 20 and 21 this season. He was 20 years old when the season started. He came off a pretty solid like Team USA run as just like a bench guy for there. Playing as a 20-year-old, man. You know how like stressful that's probably got to be, playing with like Anthony Edwards, Brunson, Ingram, and all those guys out there. And Paolo is going to be 22 next season. He's already a one-time All-Star. He won the Rookie of the Year award. He just put up 22.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 5.5 assists on good efficiency. Was an anchor for one of the best defensive teams in the Eastern Conference this year. And in 7 games in round 1, put up 27 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 4 assists on good efficiency. 47 from the field, 40% from 3. Paolo Banchero is him, man. Paolo Banchero is going to be a top 7 guy in this league one day, and he could be on that Anthony Edwards trajectory right now. And we got to talk about him when you're talking about some of the best guys under the age of 25. I mean, if you got to play with Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert, or players like that caliber, who knows where they could have gone this year. And they could have definitely beaten Cleveland. And I think you did get your struggles out of Suggs, who looked kind of shaky offensively in the second half of the year, and Franz Wagner, it's kind of weird with Franz, right? Because Franz was like a solid shooter at Michigan. He was a solid shooter for Germany just last summer. He was a solid shooter throughout the couple years of his career so far, but this year he wasn't good. Like, he shot 31% from 3 in his freshman year, 34% from 3 as a sophomore year in college, and then he goes to the NBA and shoots 35 from 3, 36 from 3, has a great Team Germany run in the FIBA World Cup last summer, and then this year he shoots 28% from 3. Teams are just leaving him wide open, and he struggled in round 1 shooting the ball against the Cleveland Cavaliers in those 7 games. He shot the ball 40% from the field, 27% from 3, and 88% from the line. He had some good games, for sure, but he also had some bad games as well. Like, he was phenomenal in what was that, game number 4? Game number 3, where he put up 34 points. He was solid in game number 6, but wasn't perfect. Still could not hit a 3 to save his life. And this dude was horrible in game 7. Shot 1 for 15. What? 1 for 15, 0 for 5 from 3. And I don't want to come out and say, okay, Franz isn't a good number 2 one day. No, Franz is still 22 years old. Let's give him some time. He's going to maybe get his rookie extension this offseason. We'll see. I think he will. And Orlando, I think, has a guy. Now, yeah, if you can get Devin Booker, you trade Franz Wagner for him. But I'm not in a rush to move Franz Wagner. I'm kind of, you just want to invest into Franz, Suggs, and Paolo. yeah, this team could use a Paul George. I would sign Paul George. I'm not trading for Paul George, right? If Paul George opted in and you trade for, I'm not giving up future first right now for somebody like that. That doesn't fit your timeline whatsoever. That had a very inconsistent playoff series against Dallas. You have your core guys. You have hopefully Jonathan Isaac coming back fully healthy because he could still be an elite defender. He has his limitations offensively, but he'll be another year fully healthy, full offseason of work. Cole Anthony, I think I would try to move Cole. I wasn't a huge fan of Cole or Fultz this year. Fultz is most likely gone. Cole had his struggles offensively. I thought he'd be a little bit better in the playoffs, and he wasn't. But you know what? You come back, good scoring point guard off the bench. You have Paolo at the 4. Wendell Carter Jr. could be your 5. Ingles, if he wants to come back on the minimum, just to be a veteran for you. Suggs, obviously, is your 1 or your 2 next year. Elite defender, good three-point shooter, everything you want in a complementary piece. I think Anthony Black is a big wild card. Is he going to be more of a wing? Is he going to be more of a lead point guard in this league? Because if he can be your number 1, hey, then you got that position locked down. But if he's more of someone that's going to hit some threes, maybe get an assist or 2 a night, but not really be able to run a half-court offense, and he's a wing, then you got to figure that out for sure. And you still got to look for your point guard. You need shooting. I wasn't a huge fan of the Jett Howard pick, but he played well in the G League this season. Will he be a consistent shooter next year? We'll see. Mo Wagner, fine backup big. 2 Wendell Carter Jr., and you kind of go forward there. So this Orlando team playing with house money, I would look at your Malik Monks of the world. I don't really know if I would commit anything more than a 2-year deal to Klay Thompson, and I'm a little scared in doing that. I think if you can sign Paul George to a 2-3-year deal, you do that, because I think it gives Paolo a safety blanket, but you also don't want him to stump like Franz Wagner's development, right? I mean, this team could just look for an elite 3-point shooting point guard, and I don't know if you're going to find one in this offseason, because you can, like, say Anthony Black is not ready to be like your lead point guard, right? And Suggs is better as like an off-ball 2. You have Franz at the 3, Powell at the 4, and Carter Jr. at the 5 next year. I'm trying to think, like, Fred VanVleet would be like perfect for this team, but I don't think Houston is in the market to trade him. And you don't want to give up valuable assets. Kyle Lowry's a little bit older. Chris Paul's a little bit older as well. Like, D'Lo, I don't really think you want D'Lo on this team. Just doesn't fit their defensive identity. It's tough to find some point guards that could pass, that could shoot, and that can defend out there, right? I guess you were hoping Markelle Fultz could have been that for you, and it didn't really work out. Hey, maybe you bring in Malik Monk, and you hope him and Suggs can facilitate enough. I think I would look at Malik Monk first, because it's not going to cost you any trade assets. I would look at Paul George second. I would look at Klay Thompson third. If you can get KCP, I'd look at him as well. But this Orlando Magic team should be right back in the thick of things next year. All right, so I hope you guys did enjoy this podcast. Let me know if you did by dropping a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about kind of like my reaction to the series so far and what the Magic should do this offseason. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it takes 2 seconds. A rating or review, or just hit that 5 stars on Spotify. It literally takes 2 seconds. It goes a long way, and it helps grow the podcast. Sorry for not getting into it for this episode, but I will be doing my top 15 guard rankings. That may be out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. Might be its own dedication of the pod, and then I'll react to game 1 of the Boston and Thunder series. So be on the lookout for that, and then we'll get into my top 15 wings and bigs as well. So thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.